Okay, I'm going to start now because we've got our walk to get on with today, which, as you all know, is taking place in Cape Town with Robin Kirsten. I'll briefly introduce Robin in a minute, but I just want to welcome a few of our guests who have come to join us on this walk. We've got representatives from the Art Academy in Nuremberg, a group of students and also professors from there. And also with us is Huvia Kahane, who is Regius Professor at Dublin Trinity. He'll be joining us on our walk. And of course, Simon King, co-founder of Walkative, and Adalberto Lonardi, Katerina Siegel, both presidents of Walkative. So we've got a neat little group who are with us, and of course all the attendees. And from last week we've got Anna Adal, whose talk you will remember, taking place in Stockholm. I just want to invite Hannes Brunner, who is also with us today, to say a little bit about next week's walk, because he will be hosting our walk in the Marshall Islands next week, which we're all very excited about. Hannes, do you want to just explain how that's going to work?
Yes, hello everybody. I'm very delighted to, and thanks to Jasper, to do this special Walkative in the Marshall Islands. And it definitely won't be such an urban culture, but I do think it's quite crucial as we try to build up this project like a cooperation between a college in the Marshall Islands and Weissensee Art Academy. And the subject is basically a media interaction in the context of climate change. And as you do know, the Marshall Islands, they're quite crucial focus. And one thing, they're probably one of the most hidden places by the nuclear legacy. And on the other side, climate change is hitting them really quick and fast because of the rising of the ocean. And then still there is the big conflict about the indigenous population, also in this post-colonial time. Specifically, some of you might know, it was once a German colony, and it's quite interesting. Actually, we encounter names like Heine, like the writer. Actually, the president of the Marshall Islands is called Hilde Heine. She is wonderful. And then we have names like Müller, but in this kind of context. So we will guide the tour through Majuro. Majuro is the capital. And there you will see how actually this whole city is built, and definitely also is under a major lockdown. They have only online sessions at the school, although they don't have any cases yet of COVID-19, but they're under total lockdown. So yeah, I'm cordially welcome to do this introduction then next week with the professor, Maitaka Kendaleka. She will guide us basically through there.
Excellent, thank you, Hannes. We're all looking forward to that, and also to remind you that next Sunday, when we do partake in, when we do share that walk around the Marshall Islands, we will be starting at 10 in the morning, so there's a much earlier start. But of course, today we're walking around Cape Town with Robin Kirsten. Robin has kindly agreed to lead today's walk. He's currently in Cape Town, grew up in South Africa. Robin's an artist who, for some years now, has been working on building a museum of infinite relations. This museum is not necessarily a physical space. It's a space that has a number of dimensions to it, which includes an artist space. It's also a world. It's a model of the universe. It's all these things together as a kind of concept for this museum of infinite relations. So, of course, Robin was an obvious person to invite to lead a walk as part of Walkative, given that walking will have to be part of his museum at some point. So thank you, Robin. And just before Robin starts, actually, just to remind you that me and Simon will be checking the chat. So if you have any questions along the way, we will gather those questions for a discussion at the end. Okay, thanks a lot.
Hi, everybody. Thanks very much to Jasper and Walkative for inviting me. Jasper, you invited me about sort of 2 weeks ago, and I remember we were having a conversation about sort of how the pandemic is sort of exposing some of the sort of the DNA of the state or the government or the culture that we're in, because you recognize that, you know, different countries were responding differently. And you also mentioned to me that maybe I should look at what I would take for granted or might be overlooked. So I've put together slides, images and some video footage. There's about 140 odd images. And part of it is photographs taken from the area I'm living in, and the rest is sort of my walk around the internet. Also try and sort of piece together where these kind of, this observation of these details that overlooked sort of might take you. A lot of the material is probably quite well known, or at least you can find it on the internet, but I thought it'd be quite important to highlight, to remind people what the conditions are in Cape Town in South Africa. And also I'm going to look at COVID-19 and how security, fear, loathing, and figures of authority like the police and military and government sort of edicts and removal of rights, for example, is sort of playing into this sort of the mix that is already endemic, South African culture, politics, economics, etc., and its relationship to the pandemic. So I'm going to be sharing screen and unsharing screen because I need to play video clips. So I'm not really able to see chats all the time, but once I come out to look at video footage, I'll be able to catch up. So I think one of the panelists will maybe raise their hand if there's something important that they want me to chat about, but otherwise I'm going to go ahead. So as I was going through all the material, I sort of realized that obviously there's this kind of fear and loathing and sort of fear of crime, loathing of police forces. So I sort of, I decided to title it Fear and Loathing in ZA, sort of riffing off the Hunter S. Thompson novel and film adaptation, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. Of course, there's a bit of psychoactive substances involved in that film, and I will touch on that a little bit, sort of halfway through. Okay, so I think because everybody's in lockdown and you can't go traveling, and I thought I'd take you on a 90-second trip to Cape Town. It's an Expedia ad, and I think it's quite brilliant that it manages to, in the first 1.5 minutes, give you a very concise history of South Africa, and then I'll pick up from that. Okay, let's just see. Do I have the right video?
Colorful Cape Town is one of the most multiracial cities in the world. The city sits on South Africa's Cape Peninsula, where the waters of the Atlantic and Indian Oceans converge, and spectacular mountains tumble towards the sea. For centuries, the Cape of Good Hope was synonymous with danger, as European ships bravely rounded the perilous waters en route to the riches of Asia. To resupply those passing ships, the Dutch created a tiny outpost in 1652, a settlement that would blossom into one of the most beautiful cities in one of the most breathtaking settings on Earth. For decades, Cape Town has been buffeted too by the crosswinds of social upheaval. But just like those early ships, Cape Town had endured some of history's most turbulent waters and set course to an optimistic future. This is a city that, despite its challenges, shines as an example of hope, not only to South Africa, but to the world. Cape Town's central area.
Okay, yes, so it's synonymous with danger. I mean, this is something to sort of remember as we go forward. Sorry, let me just get to keynote speech. Okay, so this is where, this is Table Mountain, which is where the last video ended, iconic symbol of Cape Town. And behind this, the mountain stretches all the way down to the peninsula. I think it's quite interesting that you have this border between the two oceans. They literally are sort of, one is warm and green, the other one is cold and blue. And somehow this sort of geological structure, this mountain, you'll see how sort of borders and fencing sort of keeps playing itself out across the suburbs. So I am here just below this sort of where this arrow, at the bottom of the arrow, in an area called Observatory. Just from a map, you can see where it is in relationship to the right-hand side, which is sort of a dense urban area. And around all of that is a couple of mountain ranges, which sort of fence everything in. So here you see how all the roads lead into sort of past Observatory. It really is kind of a sort of enormous melting pot, and sort of is a border suburb between what would be Cape Town City Bowl, southern suburbs below that, and then moving to an area which is called the Cape Flats. I'm going to come back to this Cape Flats in a bit, but I just want to make sure you sort of get the sort of layout of these different areas. So on my research, I discovered something quite interesting about Observatory. Across from Observatory, where the star is a suburb called Ndabeni. I discovered that in 1899, when the bubonic plague hit Cape Town, the authorities sort of used that sort of soft fist of health and hygiene to move the Africans from Cape Town outside to what is now, which is the first sort of township, sort of a pre-apartheid, proto-apartheid settlement. You know, it struck me as quite interesting, this sort of isolation and then sort of racial isolation versus sort of self-isolation. There's this kind of movement using kind of the laws of the time to sort of already separate people out because of health and hygiene. Anyway, so zooming in a little bit closer, this is the area that, by the strictest interpretation of the current law, I'm allowed to walk. So I can go from A to B via the shortest route, which has got sort of two options. The X's are an underpass over this railway line. Of course, you can take a little bit longer, and what I've done is I've taken some photographs of my walk to the spa, which is on the left-hand side of the screen. And I'll also take you to the area just outside the spa, the village green. So it's really, a lot of the houses like this, kind of late Victorian and also, you know, towards mid-century homes, very pretty, a lot of them renovated. It's very cosmopolitan. A lot of students come here from overseas because of the local training hospital and the university. You know, everything's lovingly restored. The streets are beautiful. The gardens are lush. Banana trees grow. Palm trees are flourishing. Sky is always blue. Wisteria, bougainvillea, jasmine sort of lines the streets. And there you have an ornamental, what is called a cosmopolitan ornamental frangipani. There's Devil's Peak, which is the mountain. So this is sort of very visible as a backdrop. Again, you can see sort of a gentrification process happening with this restoration of these beautiful old structures. Again, sort of just to indicate the type of sort of middle class and sort of gentrification that's going on in the area. It's also home to what previously used to be a lot of textile factories for the cut, make, and trim trade. So since 1994, you know, Chinese imports have sort of decimated this industry. So, you know, there's a lot of unemployment, especially people who would be seamstresses or craftspeople specializing in this. And those buildings have been turned into, there's new sort of structures being built, a little bit like this kind of brutalist architecture. Nobody's moved into this one yet. I think the whole thing halted about 2 weeks ago. Oh, no, sorry, 2 months ago. This is the side of that. You can see it's quite sort of fortified and quite different to those other homes. This is sort of an underground car park, which would be secured with CCTV footage, remote controlled entrance, security guards. Okay, spa. So this is the place, essentially all we're allowed to do is, besides a walk you can take between 6 a.m. and 9 a.m. every morning to exercise, jog, walk your dog. Besides that, you have to take the shortest route possible, either in a vehicle or on a bicycle or walking to your local shop to buy essentials. In theory, you aren't allowed to jog to the shop between 9 a.m. and 6 a.m. the next morning, because that's considered exercising, which is limited for 3 hours in the morning. So this is the village green on the left, and then you can see the spa building there, which I've indicated with the arrow. And over the last few two months since lockdown, these sort of structures have started to form around the perimeter. This is kind of a sort of a magnet for homeless people, because this is where you can beg for food and money, because everywhere else in the city is closed down. So this is where people naturally would want to congregate to be able to sort of get resources. Interesting thing here is you'll notice sort of between there's two bollards, this guy has sort of built this this perimeter fence, sort of demarcating his property with sort of vegetation and plants, very much like, almost identical to the houses in the area I'm living in. I also want you to pay attention to this, because we're going to sort of move into security now. This is a kind of a grill, could be from a barbecue, I'm not quite sure. This is very interesting because, you know, if you're in your house and you want to leave the door open or the window open to get some air, you really have to have some kind of security feature. So, you know, it's interesting to me that even on this scale of sort of domestic, little sort of homeless dwelling, sort of thought has been given to security. So let's just take a look at home security and look at I want to zoom in now to what I didn't show you before amongst the leafy sort of streets. Okay, so every home in South Africa really needs to have some kind of fortification or to stop people breaking into the house, of course, to protect your property and your land. So this is some of the options, but as we'll see, there are many other options that can be put in place. So this is very typical of the area, these sort of terraced homes. Each of them have been gridded up over the years in sort of different ways. The back of the house would also have something similar on all the doors and windows, but you know, this is quite a aesthetic sort of gilded cage version of them. This is sort of run-of-the-mill standard sort of feature. Underneath the front patio, you know, another layer of gridding has been put in, sort of an imprisoning. More sort of mid-century kind of versions. You can sort of see, you can sort of express yourself if you like. If you don't want to just buy something off the shelf, you can do this, and you see this is quite common. More contemporary version would be this sort of spiked clear view fence. So this is one of the things that you have to be careful of is if you've got a high perimeter wall that's solid, you don't know who's on the other side of the wall when you access your property. So these new contemporary designs sort of allow you to show off your house. It also allows you to see what's on the other side of the fence before you enter when you get home after work or in the evening. So spikes are on everything. This is about a 2 meter, let's say 6 foot wall. This fleur-de-lis pattern also comes up quite a lot, and I suspect it's the French Huguenots who came into South Africa fleeing persecution in France, religious persecution, who might have brought this over because it's associated as a sort of heraldic symbol from the French crown. And I'm doing a little bit of research. I also found out that the old French colony, Louisiana, the state of Louisiana, has the fleur-de-lis as its motif in various sort of places, Durban, some flags. And also it's associated with the branding of slaves. So I thought actually this is quite interesting, a security feature, relationship to the French crown, persecution, slavery, branding. I won't go into this, but I think you'll notice further along this fleur-de-lis everywhere. You see it over here as well on this remote controlled access gate. And then you start to notice the barbed wire as well. So there's a lot of this, as well as different types of spikes on this sort of another 6-foot-high fence. This is to prevent people from jumping over at any time of day. And these are pretty lethal objects. There's more sort of contemporary versions, and these would individually rotate so that you can't sort of hook a piece of rope or something onto it to sort of climb over and to try and avoid the spikes. Spikes everywhere, at the bottom, underneath windowsills. Something else that's embedded into the cement. This is the house that I'm living in. It's a low wall, and we all have spikes, both the neighbor and ourselves, to sort of stop people getting into this alleyway. If you don't have spikes, then maybe you have cactuses, because they grow really, really well. So this is a way of sort of securing that somebody can't jump over the wall. Okay, so, you know, gilded cages. Every home's going to have one of these in some kind of version, whether you can maybe afford or want to do something that's sort of ties in with the architecture or something more off the shelf. Even a door, which has a security feature, as you can see, that brown door has a gate. That whole structure could also have a security feature, because one isn't enough. So this way, you're protecting the security for the security, if you like. There's multiple layers of security. Again, spikes at the top so that you can't use that as a ladder, climb up and try and enter the window above. So that new building I showed you, this has now got sort of security integrated into it as part of the design. So this is obviously now, contemporary architecture will include this as standard, as well as these very narrow sort of recesses or cutouts for lighting. Will have sort of this burglar bar type structure. Again, more gates and spikes and barbed wire. You know, one imagines that what normally happens is you put up one piece of security, like this gate, the spikes, then you realize that's not enough, so you have to add something to that. Here you can see that sort of fleur-de-lis motif on the left and right sort of fencing, and then again barbed wire to secure that access. This is just around the corner. So you can imagine the logic would be, okay, first we put spikes on the wooden gate, and that wasn't enough. So what we'll do is we've raised the wall with these wooden beams and put spikes on top of that. But now that's not enough. So you also need to put barbed wire so that nobody can climb up onto this pole and sort of try and navigate their way into the back of the house. So this is really about fear of crime and protecting your property. It's absolutely endemic. Another house around the corner, sort of strewn with barbed wire. So once you've got your fence and your barbed wire, and if that's not enough, then you also want to maybe get armed response. So these are private security firms who come out when a signal is broken, which would be when a door is opened, let's say, or window has been opened. It's a kind of magnetic contact, and that will communicate through the telephone lines, raise an alarm at the company's offices, and they'll come over with a private security who are armed to investigate the matter. I'll look at the private security in a minute as well. So big signs outside your house, like this one here, who's got the fleur-de-lis fence, a gate, armed security, and a CCTV camera, and flood lighting. So these are sort of motion sensor lighting. So if somebody jumps over the fence, the light goes on at night, and the CCTV can record the footage. You're reminded everywhere on the street that you're on camera. So if that's not enough, then you can also get electric fencing. So electric fencing is legally it's 9,900 volts, but they sort of refer to as 10,000 volt fences. And these can seriously hurt you. It depends on the person, how much contact you make with the wiring, which I'll show you in a minute. Again, just around the corner from me, this is a typical solution where you've got a 6-foot-high wall. You can see there's sort of a metal feature in front of the cane, which is put up for privacy. barbed wire, as well as some black uprights for an electric fence, and then this gate that's also got spikes on it. I wonder if you can see there the horizontal of the white gate. It's got spikes on top of it, and above that are these electric lines which prevent you from jumping over because of the shock you get to your body. Signs are in multiple languages, depends on which part of the nation you are, because they might be in Zulu or Xhosa or Sotho, as well as English and Afrikaans, which are the other two official languages. Or these are three of the official languages, at least. Again, fleur-de-lis, danger, 10,000 volts, and big signs warn you everywhere. Okay, then there's also this really fantastic thing that I come across, which is sublethal. Now, bizarrely, this is legal, and I will show you the video site, the website, with a little video demonstrating how it works.
Sublethal remote guns are security devices located high on poles overlooking your property, or even inside your business. Remote guns gives you the capability to fight back against armed criminals without putting yourself at risk. The remote gun shoots a bullet very similar to a police rubber bullet and is non-lethal. In South Africa, no license is required. Sublethal is based in Johannesburg, South Africa with this mission: make South Africans safe. A remote gun has 360 degrees movement around and 100 degrees vertically. The remote gun is controlled with a hand controller similar to a gaming controller. The controls are very easy to use. Turn the key switch to on, wait about 4 seconds for the system to start, use the video screen to aim, control left and right with the wheel, control up and down with the slider. The red button is the shoot button. Press briefly to shoot once, or hold down for automatic fire. It is that easy. The gun is quick and very accurate. In the model of a house, the first remote gun covers the garage, car, driveway, and can also shoot over the front wall to stop hijackers. Sublethal remote guns have a range of 25 meters, so the front door and garden are protected. The second remote gun is located in the back garden. The garden, including all the walls and the back entrance to the house, are protected. For more information about sublethal remote guns, visit www.sublethal.co.za.
Okay, that's pretty mad stuff. Now, I actually haven't seen that myself, but you know, in the north of the country, sort of Johannesburg, the security features are much more high end. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing really to say about that, except I think it's, you know, it's kind of off the wall, but it's very much an indication of the lengths that people go to protect their land, secure themselves. And it's also sort of a kind of form of self-militarization. Also, I haven't addressed this in this talk. I sort of imagine that it's possible, considering the context of security, that there might be a company who would kind of install a bio security feature, so that maybe visitors to the house could sort of wash their hands or disinfect themselves. I can almost see this being a door to another kind of militarization of the home as a form of sort of self-protection. Anyway, besides that, you can also have dogs. This is more common in the outer suburbs where the land is larger and sort of farming communities, where this is a sort of a very effective form of security on top of everything else. And lastly, there are these sensors, which are sort of infrared sensors, which at night, they would have 2 of these across sort of access points. So if somebody breaks the connection between the 2 beams, then the alarm goes off, the dogs bark, the RoboCop guns come out, and the armed response arrives. Okay, so just a week before we went into lockdown, which is one of the strictest lockdowns in the world, apparently, prohibition of many items was announced. I've got a little list here of some things, a bizarre list. Of course, tobacco and alcohol, the sale and purchase and transportation of alcohol was prohibited, and the sale and transportation of and purchasing of cigarettes was also made prohibitive. There was no particular reason given for this, but eventually the logic started to be sort of discussed, and the reasons were eventually sort of forthcoming from the National Command Council, which is, I guess it's similar to SAGE in the UK, sort of a group of people who are sort of going to sort of work out how to sort of manage the pandemic. So alcohol was prohibited because they said it's going to free up spaces in the hospitals, because there's a lot of problem here with drink driving. So on the weekends particularly, and after people get paid, normally the last Friday of the month, the rate of road accidents and road deaths sort of skyrockets, as well as sort of domestic violence. It exacerbates that. There's also a lot of something called a shebeen, which is sort of a pub in the sort of in the townships, which might be an illegal drinking den, where it's synonymous with, you know, pub brawls and violence and shootouts. So alcohol was prohibited. So it's now sort of, what is it, 48, 50 days that we haven't been allowed to buy alcohol. I can reassure you that it's very, very, very easy to buy alcohol through certain contacts. Of course, the price has skyrocketed. You just sort of add a zero onto what was, you know, formerly available in the shops. It's the same with tobacco. So the logic is that this is done for health reasons. And I'm going to show you a little video clip soon of one of our ministers announcing the ban on alcohol and tobacco-related products. But there's also crazy things that you can't do. For example, children's toys and games, you can't buy those. Now, I'm not a parent, but I imagine 8 weeks of lockdown with certain kids. I mean, really, what you really want to do is get some toys and games for them to play with. But no, that's illegal to purchase. So are open-toe shoes. Nobody can work out why. Pies and ready meals are also prohibited. You can only buy shirts and t-shirts if it's promoted as being worn underneath a jacket or underneath a jersey. You can't promote it in the middle of summer or late summer. You can't promote a t-shirt as something to wear just for the hell of it. And crop bottom trousers. Nobody really knows what a crop bottom trouser is either, but imagine it's shorts, and you can only sell those if you promote it as being worn with boots and leggings. So, I mean, there's absolute madness here, but a whole list of things that can and can't be sold. And the National Command Council is not really giving any sort of scientific or biological or pandemic-related reason as to why this is the case. So, you know, I thought it was very clever because 7 days before the prohibition, I went out and bought enough to last 3 weeks, because we were only told it was going to be 3 weeks. I could do Negronis, whiskey sours, vodka tonics, for me and anybody else. There'd be plenty left to go around. Unfortunately, this is not the case. This is all gone. So in terms of cigarettes, so a story resurfaced, which I'll show you after the slide. So the illicit trade in cigarettes has just been increasing. This is a 2017 overview of sort of 9 years worth of sales. The thing you got to remember is there is so obviously you can buy cigarettes as well. So a packet of cigarettes, you know, like a Lucky Strike, which used to be, say, 45 Rand, is now 350 Rand, and people are buying it. So only people making money are dealers, illicit alcohol dealers and illicit cigarette dealers. A lot of the drug traffickers and dealers have moved from what would be Class A drugs or Zol, marijuana, I'll introduce you to that in a minute, and are now sort of home delivering, you know, really inflated cigarettes, whose prices super inflated, and none of that money is going to Treasury. So this is one of the big issues: is Dlamini Zuma, who whose video I'm going to play next, who's announced this, nobody's sort of talking about the fact that there's about 1.6 billion rand in tax revenue being lost a month. You know, just to give you a bit of a perspective, with 1.6 billion rand, you can build 10,000 of these homes. So this is an RDP home, which is a redistribution and development program brought out by Nelson Mandela in his government in 1994. There's a severe lack of housing. People live in tin shacks, in shanty towns and informal settlements. You're going to see that in a minute. So you can imagine, I mean, this seems to be absolutely illogical to lose 10,000 houses worth of revenue per month. Anyway, our hands are tied. So Dlamini Zuma, so she's a very divisive figure, and so this whole issue about the cigarette trade has sort of brought up some recent, maybe it's about two-year-old sort of stories about her links to alleged cigarette smugglers like Adriana Mazzotti. And these are the people who are pretty much benefiting in a way from the prohibition. There's absolutely no transparency in the decision being made by the National Coronavirus Command Council. So I just wanted to introduce this to you because you know, it's sort of related to part of the background, which is the deep state corruption, state capture, and all sorts of other sort of illegal stories, really alleged stories that are setting the scene and the tone for how people are responding to the government's you know, rolling out of various prohibitions. And then I also need to talk about ZOL. So I did say I'd mentioned psychoactive substances somewhere along the way. So in September 2018, the court decided that it was not a criminal offense to have grow cannabis or you know, for personal use. And actually, in the next video, I'm going to show you Dlamini Zuma, who was in the previous slide, actually addressing this, because it's actually pretty much part of the culture, and part of the legislation, it seems, has been to obviously address this element of culture, you know, which is also related to a perception of a lifestyle that is sort of lazy, let's say, or not, you know, of not working, unemployment, crimes, gangs, all of this sort of the heady stuff is sort of very much located in this sort of single substance of ZOL. So let me just show you this, where she addresses the nation. And then I'm going to take you on to a little bit of art, just one little clip of what might be constituted as sort of an art response to this. Okay, let me go out of this and towards News 24 site. And let me play you. It's about 2 minutes worth of her talking.
Then there are things in the economy that will continue not to be allowed. As we said, alcohol is not allowed yet on level 4. On Saturday, we had said we're consulting. In that consultation document, we had consulted about allowing cigarettes and related products, tobacco, and as you remember, even at the press conference itself, there was quite an opposition to that. And even in the public comments, there was quite a lot of opposition. More than 2,000 people opposed it. And of course, the government then took that into consideration, debated the matter, looked at it, and decided that we must continue as we are when it comes to cigarettes, tobacco products, and related, that we should not open up the sale of products. And the reason are health related. The reasons are health related. As you know, besides the effects of tobacco itself on the person's lungs, but also the way sometimes tobacco is shared does not allow for social distancing, but also actually encourages the spread of the virus, because when people share a cigarette, obviously if one of them has the virus, it will be shared amongst them. And then they'll go home and then spread it at home. And even those who do tobacco and make I don't know what you call it, like a zol in Bosa. Yes. So sometimes when they zol, I'll read at some stage what one person said about that zol. Because he says when people zol, they put saliva on the paper and then zol. And then they share that zol. So it means they are also if one of them has a virus, they are sharing that person's saliva, but also they are moving saliva from one to the other. So there were lots of...
Okay, so you get the picture. There's sort of 2,000 people who have sort of suggested that the 11 million smokers shouldn't be allowed to smoke cigarettes. Yeah, what I'm going to do now is, without wanting to comment on that, I think you can also get the picture, is I remember Antonio was sort of introduced us a bit of sort of an artistic response to the virus in Berlin. I couldn't really find anything here. I mean, it's kind of suburbia. I can't really go anywhere. I have the sort of social media that I'm getting. It's pretty standard sort of industrial fare. It's commercial galleries sort of promoting the artists and putting together, you know, I don't know, little snippets of studio visits. But I did find something which has taken that text and put it to music and this video. It's by this group called the Kiffness, who are sort of an electronic music act, also sort of satirical act, sort of like art performance act, really, in many ways. And it's a bit of light entertainment, but also it sort of just gives you a picture of who is being targeted, what sort of communities have been targeted. And I mean, these aren't places you find in the city or even suburbia, maybe in the area of the Cape Flats, which I showed you earlier, which I'm going to talk about next. But it's also a chance for me to just go and grab another glass of water. So if you don't mind, it's just about 1.5 minutes long. And I think it's going to be a number one.
And the reason are health related. But also when people zol, they put saliva on the paper and then they share that zol. It means they are to share. If when people zol, they put saliva on the paper and they share that zol. But also they are moving saliva from one to the other. And then they share that zol. Zol. And they share that zol. And the reason is related. But also when people zol, saliva, and then they share that zol, it means they are also share. If when people zol, they put saliva, and they share that zol.
Yeah, so kind of what I like about that video is how it sort of shows the disdain I think we all have for these kind of sort of removing of very basic rights, and obviously the court, the constitutional court, has made it legal that you can, smoke marijuana, and yeah, it's a very, very, I think it's quite a sort of dangerous mix of prohibition versus sort of almost attack on certain cultures and on obviously basic rights. So back to the keynote. Sorry, over here. I've shown you that. So now I want to go to the Cape Flats. So this is just to remind you where we are. So in the Cape Flats, you might find communities like this, perhaps in the less populated or more sort of rural parts of it, like Philippi. But this is also sort of a place of a lot of gangs, a lot of drugs. There's two gangs. There's the hard livings who have the British flag as their sort of motif, is one of their motifs, and then the Americans use the American flag. So the Cape Flats is really lots of areas are very, very poor, and there's a lot of informal settlements. And this, in a way, is the area. It seems like this is the places that the government is trying to sort of control more than these areas around the outside, which are really sort of wealthy white suburbs. But Cape Town Airport is in the middle of this, and this is where you would arrive. That Expedia ad doesn't show you this, but you would come straight into this. As soon as you hit the highway, in the front here, just behind this fence, you can see that there's an informal settlement of tin shacks. There won't be any water or indoor sanitation, possibly not electricity. There's the beautiful Table Mountain that you're going to go and head to, which is a 15-minute drive. And that whole area, the Cape Flats area, just behind what I've just showed you is an area called Manenberg. Now, this is kind of like the dark heart of the Cape Flats in terms of lack of opportunities. This is where the two super gangs territories. This is where they sort of fight it out. This is also obviously high unemployment and everything else, all the other kind of social conditions, cultural conditions that are affected by the economic situation. And there you can see as well, the kind of the mountains around it, sort of fence it in as some kind of like encampment or some kind of enclave. I'm quite interested in the circular shape, the sort of boundary of the space with this heart in the middle, this sort of dark heart, the center of it, which sort of ricochets or spreads out towards the perception of that area. What I did discover is I thought, well, why don't I go and show you the security features in Manenberg? If the whole of South Africa and every house has got this, why don't I show you what it looks like there? And so there was a very interesting discovery I made, and perhaps somebody can explain this. I've started to try and do some research on this. But so this is where Manenberg is here. Let me just move this because no, that's not so great. Let me just do that. Okay. So if I zoom into Manenberg, all right, you can see it's sort of fenced in there with red. You see Hanover Park to the left and Guguletu sort of just above it. The internet's a bit slow, I think, because I'm trying to process this. Okay, so it's very, very, very built up. And when I wanted to drop street view, I realized that you can't actually see it. You can't see Hanover Park associated with criminality and sort of the dark heart of Manenberg. None of these as well. So I don't really know what that's about, if that's to kind of prevent tourists accidentally going in there, or if that's a policy that comes from police force or the government about not being able to sort of show that area. But everywhere else, even these very built up areas, it's fine. You can see everything except Manenberg and the areas around that associated with the gangs. Back to keynote. Maybe somebody can inform me about that. Maybe you know of other places in the world or places in the cities that you coming from, that you're watching from, that could explain that. But what it did remind me of, that whole sort of encampment of Cape Flat with Manenberg in the center, are these encampments, which are sort of security, militarized spaces of the voortrekkers, who were the Dutch descendants who would have sort of come through the country trying to head further north to colonize and to sort of create farmland. You know, in the center of this, you can almost see there's a remnant of an old fireplace, you know, the kind of the heart of the, in the darkness, if you like, of this sort of circular shape. And those very voortrekkers who would have traveled up would have come across this structure, which is a Zulu kraal. Again, also kind of security feature around the outside with the sort of, let's say, the hearth, the heart of the place in the middle. And this is very interesting because it's very much like all the homes in South Africa. You have, everything's fortified, and the center is kind of your, let's say, the space of self-isolation, really, or sort of self-determination. Sort of this free space, or like maybe an invisible space like Manenberg. I don't know, but there's a structural similarities which I'm starting to sort of, started to interest me out of this, doing the research for this walk. So go back to Cape Flats. Okay, so I live where that arrow is, just to give you a sense of the proximity to, from this house to Manenberg, a mere 15-minute drive. Just from another angle, you can see it is incredibly flat. It used to be completely uninhabited. Here you've got another security feature, which is the Robben Island, itself a sort of circular shape where Mandela was imprisoned for almost 3 decades. This is Table Mountain Range here with the most expensive properties in Africa, retailing at about $6,100 per meter square, which is enough for, I don't know, 2 years' salary for people who might live in C, for example, the Cape Flats, which is where Manenberg, the crime, the airport is. It's a sort of center, really, of Cape Town. D is another mountain range, which also sort of creates this wall around it, and then E is a range that extends to the north. So in the 1950s, group areas delineation, brought in by the apartheid government, you can see that this Cape Flats area was divided into different racial groups, African, colored, Indian, white. Sort of very, very hard borders between all of them. This 2011 consensus map, pretty much you can see these borders still very much enforced, certainly in the blue and yellow areas. But the pink, which is the white, and the yellow, which is the colored areas, that edge has started to kind of soften. But this is very interesting. It plays out in the political parties who are in power in these different areas, and actually really just shows that sort of 60 years later, this is really, really endemic. Borders, security, separation, isolation, sort of militarized spaces is really, really, really kind of the DNA, absolute DNA of South Africa. We must look at the policing of COVID-19 too. In those exactly those areas, not in Observatory where I am, I haven't seen a policeman, no army, no traffic cops, nothing. So, you know, this is the figure that we have, representation of the policeman. This anti-apartheid movement, London magazine ad, sort of puts it very well. They're very much a sort of a brutal and terrifying figure who are also judge and executioner. As well as the military, who just sort of a couple of hours before we went into lockdown, these images started to circulate on social media of the military being deployed. Nobody knew about it until these images came up. Eventually the government had to, or the Defence Force had to admit that they were on standby for deployment. So 2 days after, the day after lockdown, this is what I read in The Guardian about how people were being treated in these poor areas. You've got to remember, people get paid on the Friday, so that was the last day of the month. So unlike me, who could stock up with booze and lentils and pasta to last months, you know, if you don't have money, you're waiting for your payday. Obviously, during lockdown, there's the first day that you can go and get supplies. And so this is what happens. A few days later, you see the military and the police starting to enforce social distancing in these poor areas by, you know, asking people to do this military maneuver, which is how you sort of distance yourself when you're lining up on a parade to sort of, you know, maintain sort of, you know, your own space and to obviously not knock anybody out. And this all reminded us of apartheid and the kind of brutality and aggression which came from the security forces. And this op-ed in one of the sort of very popular red tops picked up on this. And so, you know, our worst fears are starting to be realized, you know, along with Prohibition and the signing of a disaster act, a state of disaster, sorry. These images coming back from 1960s, 70s, 80s of apartheid brutality by the Defence Force started to become, you know, common in all the press. Another image from the same day shows, you know, order being trying to be kept in this sort of lineup of people going to shop by a policeman. You can see in the apartheid era, sort of, this is maybe the pass law protests. This kind of relationship of a gun to, you know, somebody's head, as you see here, is, you know, it's a symbol of how the police are, the instinct, sort of authorized by the state, how they can sort of police the situation. It's even been subject of the United Nations, who in 2016 started an investigation into police brutality. And this is one of the images that are associated with that article about the UN probe. And of course, it reminds you of Soweto massacres, white sort of military going into the black townships and sort of forcing order. Again, Sharpeville, 1960s. This is a few weeks ago, the military patrolling Lavender Hill, which is a 15-minute drive away from me. A very, very poor area, also heavily controlled by gangs and drugs.
The officers on duty seem anxious. They admit they can hardly keep these huge areas under control. The enforcement of the lockdown is anything but systematic. It appears random. This man couldn't get away fast enough.
He's supposed to be in his house. This is a lockdown, and you don't have any reason to be outside. There's a reason why the officer stopped him.
He's fined for 1,500 rand, about 80 euros.
You have that kind of money? No, I'm not working. That's why I was going to my brother to take a food.
The man says that during the arrest he was kicked and beaten by the police behind the house. We could verify this from our position. A few blocks away, we meet a young woman who doesn't want to show her face. She's afraid she'll be recognized. But she does want to show what the police did to her just for being on the street. She says several officers stormed into her house and attacked her with sticks and whips, and all this in front of her daughter.
It's actually traumatizing because I've never been beaten up like that.
Apartheid era police, which is in the last time this country would have seen any kind of deployment or rolling out of the military and the police, which is essentially sort of a peacekeeping force, the military, which has now gone into, allegedly it's gone into sort of war-ready mode, because things are going to play out. There's, you know, people don't have money, they don't have jobs, a lot of them are illegal immigrants or undocumented, so this kind of hand-to-mouth economy of also informal trading has become completely decimated. So how on earth how is this police brutality alongside the decimation of the economy, as well as, you know, many of the other issues which hopefully I can get to? How's this going to play out? I don't know, but I think we have to keep a steady eye on what develops on a day-to-day basis. If I can just continue here. Okay, private security. Well, we've got to look at this. Private security is bigger than the army and the police together. And a little clip here, 1.5 minutes, will introduce you to this.
Why not?
It's from about, sorry, about here.
Members of the South African.
Sorry, let me just take it forward to the place is here. Go.
Besides South Africa's booming private security industry.
The security industry is bigger than what it's ever been in South Africa.
But the government claims it's an industry that threatens national security.
A very dangerous situation arises if you have a security industry that outstrips both your police and your army, and there is completely no regulation of that industry.
So why is private security such big business here, and just what do these companies do?
Yeah, so I'm not going to show you the rest of that. Really, just introduce you to one of the companies. I see time is short. But a lot of the private security companies were started by people who left the army once the country transitioned to a post-apartheid government. So, you know, you've got really highly trained, skilled people from the apartheid era who, you know, have understand how to sort of roll out the authority and use weapons. Now, sort of replacing the police who can't be trusted and the military who, as you can see, are terrifying. And this obviously, these are the types of people who will come to your home in case an intruder enters when an alarm is sounded. So this is sort of the other background, and this is really the types of, so in the sort of the wealthier and white areas, you'd have private security, but sort of in the townships, you got police force and the army, sort of currently. Let's look at those poor communities, actually, that everybody keeps talking about a little bit deeply, a bit more detail. Yeah, absolutely, Jasper. You can open this up whenever you want to, just shout. It's a couple of minutes, maybe you can give me 5. So this is the type of areas you would see, you'd fly into this almost when you arrive in Cape Town. It's not, you know, the tourist scene that you expect. And Hannes, there's some local things that people's trying to start up, of course. But no, currently there is a food program that the government has tried to bring in, but it's rife with corruption because what you have is councillors for different wards sort of distributing the food to people in the area who would vote for them. So it's a kind of vote buying situation. It's not transparent, and there's a lot of uproar about that because it seems to be also an incredibly corrupt system. Imagine you can even sell those food parcels if you one of the politicians who are sort of managing the delivery of those food parcels. So no, not really. I mean, what you do have, which is maybe more interesting, is to show you, you know, the scale of the problem in terms of food. And there's just a short clip of something. Just in that clip, people have hijacked a truck, a food truck, and sort of, you know, they got no money, the shops are closed, there's no informal traders. So they've attacked this to try and get supplies. And a lot of shops have been looted, some of them alcohol shops, because you can sell the alcohol for extortionate prices. So it's a way of replacing the salary that you're not getting anymore because businesses are closed and businesses are closing. Any planned end date? Well, the end of May, we're supposed to go to level 3, but that's only in certain areas. So the Western Cape and Cape Town has the highest rates of infection. So we imagine that that's going to remain at level 4, along with all the prohibitions and restrictions. But certain areas might come out of that. To answer that question. So yeah, there's images of looting, more looting here, sort of, there's a little bit of, this is a charity doing a feeding program, a local charity. So this is not any government funded program. Sorry, just to get back to South Africa and its inequality, this is the Time article. A lot of it's sort of based on the World Inequality Database. It's about a year ago. Sort of reveals the depth of the problem. On the right-hand side, you've got these informal settlements, literally a highway, not even a highway, a 2-lane sort of dual carriageway separating, you know, extreme wealth, swimming pools, luxury. Like also lockdown instead of opposite numbers. I don't know what you mean there. We started at 5 and we're going to go down to 1. So 5 is the severest. Do you want to open this up, do you think? Waiting for time?
Can we all put our cameras on and unmute ourselves on for those people that can at the moment? If you do want to ask a question or make a comment or join in with the panel, just let us know, and we can pull you in. It's not exclusive.
Medical aid. Sorry, so a lot of Cuban doctors arrived here to start helping with the preparations, maybe about 3-4 weeks ago. But I've seen that's happened elsewhere in other countries.
I'm just struck by your description of Mannenberg as the dark heart, and you know who regards it as the dark heart. It seems to be the authorities, and I'm thinking about the title of Fear and Loathing, and it seems to be more a top-down fear and loathing. I mean, it's obviously something that is coming, if you like, from both ends, but you know there seems to be a real a fear from the sort of you know, from the political elite.
Yes, I guess it's really, in terms of COVID-19, I guess when you look at some of these in settlements, you can imagine how difficult it is, like this, Khayelitsha, 34 minutes away, how difficult it would be to control the pandemic if it got into these areas where people sleep forward to a tin shack, there's no sanitation, no water, you're underneath the blistering hot sun, you're supposed to stay indoors all day long. I mean, it's just crazy. So there's a fear of COVID-19, but I think there's also a fear of the sort of an uprising against the political elite who are synonymous with corruption and self-aggrandizement. They represent, you know, the economic elite as well, of course, and the types of control they have, even with food programs, as I've described, about who gets what depending on political allegiance. So yeah, there's both fears, and I think the defense forces, the security forces, are sort of are the carriers really of that sort of fear. They have so much authority. They're executioners and judges. They are like the fence, if you like, the sort of security parameter around the state, but also at the same time enclosing the communities.
But are they perhaps also coming from the same communities? They must, some of them at least, be living amongst the people that they're oppressing.
Yeah, there are different sort of, in areas like Cape Flats, there are different types of suburbs. So they would probably have areas of greater wealth, maybe better education. So the opportunities would also be better for you to sort of become part of the police or defense force. I did want to show you a clip which I now don't have, but it's about a security guard who lives precisely in one of these shacks. He's a private security guard. And in the video, he says he cannot tell his neighbors or any of his friends what he does as a living, because they will pressurize him to supply them with the tools of his trade. So bulletproof vests, guns, whips, whatever you've got. So he has to lie and say that he recycles bottles in order to sort of do his job. So you almost don't want to tell people that you have that kind of job, it seems, from his account.
Robin, just while you're preparing that clip, can I just say a couple of things? First of all, I really enjoyed this idea of the security mesh and arrangement being potentially a kind of design act or even a kind of creative act outside these houses. I thought that your walkthrough of these various versions of kind of quite domestic security options was really intriguing. And as you were talking, I was also wondering what kind of impact this time in Cape Town in South Africa has had on your own research with regard to the Museum of Infinite Relations.
Well, the symbol of the monad is something I use as a sort of one of the methods to try and sort of make sense of the idea of an infinite relation, which is really just a hunch. And that has got a center, it sort of consists of, it's an encircled dot. So you've got in the middle of the circle. So it's very much like those shapes I showed you. So yeah, I think in trying to sort of come to an understanding about, let's say, what's at the heart of the matter and to the extent to which that continues and how that sort of creates a very specific world, I think it's been useful for me to try and make those connections and sort of ring fence quite literally the current situation. And also, of course, you know, the homes I've showed you being so sort of bounded up with security sort of is an expression of this sort of outer circle, and you know, oneself inside of that circle, sort of protected by that circle or determined by that circle as well. So you know, there's a very strong relationship between the origin, the center of a neighborhood or a house, and the monad, and then of course this outer ring. Sorry, there's quite a lot of questions here.
Yeah.
So what does colored mean? So there's a Malaysian population here, which are called the Cape Malays. They would have come over from Indonesia, partly as slaves, and there would have been some sort of racial mixing. So people like Trevor Noah, for example, is classed as colored. So they're not necessarily indigenous to South Africa, but they sort of they only sort of exist here through a sort of a crossbreeding across different races. Can we see the rest of the images in your keynotes? Okay, there's quite a lot. I don't know, what do we do at time?
Maybe you could address that last question while you can click through them. Are there images that you actually need to talk through?
Well, there's a couple of videos here, so I think we're just going to have to skip that. I mean, I think it would just be interesting to think about the relationship between Khayelitsha in this map, bottom observatory where I am, Clifton. This is a 34-minute journey, okay, and you're going from absolute poverty to the most wealthiest properties on the African continent, you know, and you're driving in these things called minibuses. This is the only public transport. Thousands of them move between different centers. So of course, if COVID-19 takes hold in those places, and these are the workers who come into all these wealthy areas, the spread is going to be like wildfire. This is the sort of distancing you can do in these minibuses, 15 max. Here people are being educated about sanitizing their hands, and in fact, one of the laws now is that you have to sanitize after every trip, or the whole entire minibus has to go through this process. I mean, I don't know how on earth they're going to put this into place, but you know, this is what they're trying to achieve. And you know, the houses you're going to go to, those very expensive homes, look like this. You know, notice that there's no security, no burglar bars, no spikes on fences. It seems like the more money you have, the less security you need to display, because it's a no-brainer that you're going to have guns and, I don't know, robocops and sort of electric, I don't know, tripwires somewhere. There's a very curious sort of movement from, you know, a 34-minute drive from you know, one area to the other, into sort of and gated communities like this, which are sold as not needing bars. I mean, you've got walls and guys driving around on bicycles. It's like living in 1940s or something. It's this kind of like dream.
Robin, there's a question here in the chat just about the video. You know, just asking, they seem to think it was filmed in Uganda.
Yeah, I thought it was Malawi actually, but I couldn't work that out. It's not their clip.
And they just were suggesting asking who the owner of the video is, and how the dancers can be credited.
Yeah, well, there's the Kifness. I did try and research this because the Kifness explained that it came from another group called the 9GAG. And I went into 9GAG, and they got, you know, quite a lot of clips, and I was trying to identify where that might come from, but I didn't sort of. Sorry, this was just kind of like a notebook of my walk, so I didn't try and sort of be very clear about crediting, and yeah, it's just a notebook at the moment that I'm sharing with you.
I've noticed that in the with us in the group, there's a couple of people that are or have spent time or are from South Africa. I can see Nicole, you're there. Is there anything that you want to comment on in relation to your own experience? Maybe just while you're thinking about that, we can move on. People are saying that they can't see the questions in chat, which is odd because it says that all of the questions are going to attendees as well. When you write your question, can you make sure that it says all panelists and attendees rather than just panelists?
I'm trying to sort of
Simon, do you want to go through some of these questions?
Yeah, sorry, I was just trying to enable the chat for
maybe this one here about
this one.
The video, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a comment from Mitt. I just copied the info from the person who posted it. I wanted to clarify that the people who made the song and video are white and just used a video of people who have nothing to do with this song.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's there's three different things. It's Dlamini Zuma's speech remixed by the Kifness, and as I said, placed onto this video. I'm just trying to talk about sort of, it's a collage of different references. Sort of that is the only sort of artistic sort of response that shows some kind of humor or disdain for the situation. So yeah, I mean, have a look at the rest of the Kifness stuff. They are kind of rebel-rousing provocateurs, I guess. Is there different data about how the virus is spread in the different area of the city areas? Is there data? I guess so. There's a website called SA Coronavirus. I think it's .co.za. You should be able to find stuff there. I imagine. I did see that there's a kind of menu of different spaces to look at different information. So yeah, try that.
Okay, well, we're coming close to the end of our walk together. I was just wanting, you know, just to remind people that we've got, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes left. If there was anything that anyone wanted to finish with, or indeed, Robin, if there was anything that you wanted to kind of wrap up with, now is probably a good time to do it.
No, I sort of got you to the end. I mean, I was really wanted to also talk about some of the fringe political parties who are sort of going to be able to weaponize this sort of fear and loathing amongst the population, particularly in those poor areas where they have a foothold, and in rural areas. And one of those is the EFF, the Economic Freedom Fighters, sort of Marxist-Leninist group. This is from their website. What do they say about themselves is that they are radical and militant economic emancipation movement pursuing the struggle of economic emancipation. So I imagine that they're going to be able to come forward now in the next couple of weeks and months and really drive home some other kind of message to get votes. You know, the leader, Julius Malema, calls himself the son of the soil, is sort of riffing off Nelson Mandela, who's called the father of the nation. So I think he's trying to align himself here as this sort of figure who can sort of liberate black people, really, because they pretty much have it in for white people, as this 2018 banner has states quite clearly. So yeah, I mean, this whole racial mix of black and white, as you've seen in that Kipnis video, I mean, it's, you know, it's either open warfare, or there's no ways you cannot discuss the racism, apartheid, the appropriation of culture. All of this is, you know, it's up for grabs. There's no point in being PC about it. But, you know, he is going to, I think he's going to come up as a figure. He'll weaponize it. So will the Democratic Alliance, who is often called the White Party, but is actually sort of black and white, sorry, coloreds and white sort of voting bloc, and they control the Western Cape, in the Cape Flats, in the yellow and pink areas. So yeah, I'm very curious to see what's going to roll out, because there's a lot of discussion about that, particularly to, you know, the state of disaster, the removal of rights, like being able to walk your dog after 9 a.m. All of this. I think the whole world has got versions of this, but it's pretty volatile here. Yeah, it's.
Well, I just want to. I'm just looking at the Wikipedia page of the sort of breakdown of all the political parties. So the economic freedom fighters seem to be like in terms of votes, third ranked. Is it proportional representation that you have in the?
Yes. Yes.
It's just that, yeah, the African National Congress sort of completely, in terms of the number of votes, overwhelm.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, listen, okay, so there's approximately 52 million black people and 3 million white. So certainly if white people are voting for the DA, well, their representation obviously is going to reflect that proportion. And likewise, there's a much, you know, the African National Congress is sort of the black party, if you like, and you wouldn't expect maybe the majority of black people to vote for the DA. And the EFF, actually Malema used to belong to the ANC, but you know, he left in 2013 to start this party. So yeah, it's a massive bloc who are voting for the ANC, and so I imagine that, you know, so the government, the makeup of the government would reflect those racial lines and their allegiance to the parties that they believe represent them.
Okay, I'm going to close this off now, I'm afraid, just because we've run to the end of our time, and I know people need to get on with the rest of their afternoons. I want to make sure we had time to really thank you, Robin, for this walk around all areas of South Africa, both physical and political, and to remind people that next Sunday that we'll be starting at 10 for this walk in the Marshall Islands, hosted by Hannes Brunner, who is here with us today, and to continue really this discussion around walking cities in lockdown while we're still in this moment, which really trying to maximize on a kind of opportunity to think about where we are in the present, in relation really to kind of being artists and practitioners, and what that means with regard to our own work and thinking. I read somewhere recently in an introduction to, I think it was the Situationists International, that there was this claim that artists have a superior grasp of the present, which I thought was kind of a slight kind of provocation probably to everyone else, but nevertheless, I think it's an interesting moment really to kind of forefront the way that artists are experiencing this state of lockdown, and also what it means in relation to practices of walking. So thank you again, and looking forward to meeting up with you all again next Sunday at 10 o'clock. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.